Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Business Foundations. I'm here with a very special guest today, Miss Danielle Little, founder and owner of Young Royalty Chess. How you doing today, Danielle?
Hi, Anthony. I'm doing great today. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm excited to let everybody know what's going on with Young Royalty.
Yeah, and I feel like we found each other at the perfect time because I want to congratulate you on your newest accomplishment. Go ahead and let people know what that is.
Thank you. So actually, Young Royalty Chess Academy, which is an organization that I own, we were very blessed to be selected by M&T to participate in their multicultural lab and pitch competition. So we'll be competing for up to $10,000 for first place, $6,000 for second place, and $4,000 for third place. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to network with other business owners. We'll be meeting on a weekly basis up until it's time for the competition. So we're going to be learning a lot about marketing, about business financing, and different things that go into being a business owner, like having a business plan and whatnot. So it's a
Mhm.
really I'm really looking forward to the experience.
That is amazing. Congratulations. I'm really happy to hear about that. So when is actually going to be the pitch competition?
So the pitch competition will be happening on December 20th, I believe. There'll be a round one and then a round two. So, fingers crossed that we make it past round one, of course, but everything is looking absolutely how it should.
That's great. You hear everybody? Everybody mark your calendars for December 20th. Go out there, support in any way that you can. Make sure we highlight this great business. So I'm very excited for this conversation because like we mentioned earlier during our pre-recording conversation, I have never seen such an interesting business like this, especially with a young Black woman at the forefront. Really educating people on the game of chess is something that I don't even know how old the game is. Probably like thousands of years old. So can you just speak to me about, I guess, one, first of all, what kind of drew you to the game itself, and then two, why did you think that it was going to be, I guess, a viable business for you?
Wow, excellent question. So I would say, how do I even begin to answer that? Well, first, before, because you mentioned you don't know how old chess is. Chess is actually about 1,500 years old. The
Ooh.
game. So I was drawn to chess because it's a game where you can really think and ponder. And I love to think. I love critical thinking. In the
Mhm.
game of chess, it actually brings out strategic planning, analytical and inductive reasoning, as well as, creativity. It stimulates brain growth and so many different things that it does behind the scenes, that it's kind of like you're playing a game up front, but all these different things are going on cognitively that just
Mhm.
benefit you so much. So it was a game where I could allow my mind to expand. And that's how I kind of fell into chess. And I realized that it was, a viable business after I ended up being ranked uh, back in 2016, my senior year of high school. I was ranked the 41st young woman in the nation by the United States Chess Federation. Because I've been playing in tournaments and things like that. And so I moved. I ended up moving to DC. Um, and there at the university that I was attending at the time, American University, I was I walked into like the cafe, the dining area one day, and there was chess everywhere. And like I started just buzzing because I'm like, this is my thing. What's going on? And so I got
Mhm.
connected with the people who were, hosting the event and stuff like that. And I ended up working for the largest chess academy in the nation at the time. So I started off going into schools, community centers, youth organizations, and things like that, and teaching chess on their behalf. And then they promoted me to oversee our operations in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And so I was flying across the country to do, chess summer camps, Tennessee, you know, in Memphis, a couple different places really. But it was a beautiful thing. But I realized during all my travels and the experience that I gained from kind of being one of the first really young, chess corporate, like corporate chess, women, in the field, I just realized that we weren't serving, you know, people that look like me, people in my community. I thought that we could do more in that area, especially for young women as well. So that's why I kind of founded Young Royalty, because I saw that there was a need. And I knew that I had the skills, and the ability to fill that need. And so it was really just connecting with the right individuals moving forward, and networking to get myself to where the kids are, and reach them on a one-to-one level.
Wow, that's really interesting. When I was doing my research in preparation for this conversation, I saw a quote of yours where you said that chess helps increase reading comprehension and mathematics scores and even stimulates brain growth, and that you like to use your program to target minorities all across Western New York because you want to make chess accessible to the community. Can you really speak to, I guess, your own experience as far as just chess being that not only a game, but also exercise for your brain and all the different health benefits that can come along with it?
Oh, yes. A lot of people think that chess is for smart people. No, it's a game that makes you smarter as you play it, because you develop with the game. Each move that a person makes says something about how they think, about their decision
Mhm.
making, right? And during a game of chess, because I've been playing for so long, I'm able to see kind of a certain level of a person's I would say cognitive state, kind of what's going on. Like, maybe they're a bit impulsive, right? So they move pretty quickly without, thinking about their moves. And then they have moments of like, oh, hindsight, oh, I should have done that or this. Different character traits come out in a game of chess that I think is super interesting. That's one of the reasons why I love it. So it definitely does a lot in the mind, and you actually are using both sides of your brain when you're playing chess, which is one of the reasons why it simulates brain growth.
What I'm hearing is that you can act from your experience playing the game and obviously being great at it as you are, since you're teaching so many people. These skills are applicable to other aspects of your life, specifically just reading other people. Do you feel like, I guess, through you playing chess, you're able to strategize better in other areas of your life, even negotiate better, and just things like that?
It's so applicable for me, to each his own, of course, but life really is like a game of chess, because you're set up on this playing field, right? There's Earth, there's, the environment that we're in, and then you have access to these different resources, your pieces, right? How do you move and utilize the resources and the environment, and, work them together to benefit you, right? What is your checkmate? What are the goals that you're looking to
Mhm.
pursue, how to get there? It's very applicable to life, for me in particular, because that's just how that's how I think at this point, in terms of, life makes a move on the board, and then I have to respond to what life is giving me. Am I going to attack? Am I going to retreat? Am I going to do a more strategic move, an aggressive move, or a passive move? Depending on what's going on the board. So it teaches you how to be contextual, I would say, because each game is unique. There's actually more variations of a chess game than there are atoms in the universe, which is an interesting
Oh,
fact about chess.
wow.
Yes. So.
I guess that is a pretty good metaphor for life because you never know what life is going to throw at you. So I guess it's nice to always be prepared and just keep what is like, I guess, exercising that flexibility in your thinking too.
Adaptability,
Right.
moving with what's going on, because every time a piece moves on the board, the dynamics are changing, and every time something happens in your life, the dynamics are also changing. So you have to be, flexible and maneuver, and make the best choices that you can for yourself with all the given information you have at the time.
Mhm. And that's really the biggest thing is the information that you have in the time. Because like you mentioned, there are so many different possibilities of what you can do, but making the right move is really what's important in that moment. And I've noticed, in my own experience playing chess, is that you have to be decisive but also cautious at the same time because you don't want to move with so much haste that you kind of regret a decision that you make later on because you weren't thinking, three, four moves ahead like you should.
Mm. Exactly. You definitely want learn to think certain, how I teach it is thinking several steps ahead, right? What's the objective? What are the incremental things that you can do to gradually work yourself closer to there? Because you don't get to checkmate and just, you can't checkmate in just
Mhm.
one move. There has to be things that are coming together, elements that you're bringing and creating to get that right, that ideal checkmate situation.
Obviously in business, how you look at things and really how you're able to reframe and recontextualize the stuff that goes on in your life really does have an effect on how you operate as a business owner. And I've noticed that there's a difference between looking at, I guess, certain obstacles that you may face as a threat or a challenge. If you look at something as a threat, you kind of go into it with this very emotional, very primal, I guess, instinctual reaction. But if you look at
Yeah.
something as a challenge, you're kind of unlocking more of that analytical frame of mind. Is that one of the things that you think is a benefit from you being so experienced in chess, is that you're able to look at these difficulties in your life and in your business as more of a challenge as opposed to a threat?
Yes, a challenge as opposed to a threat. I almost look at things like a puzzle, that I'm trying
Mhm.
to figure out. There's always something to figure out. There's always different pieces that I'm trying to put together to create that whole picture to broaden my own perspective, you know?
Mhm.
So definitely, because I think looking at things as a threat is, can be to each his own, but it can be a fear-based mindset, at
Right.
times, because not there's a time to protect yourself, of course, and there's times when we are threatened, but not, it's about understanding to what degree, because in chess, right, sometimes a person will throw out a move where they're attacking you, and it's really a test, right? Not all attacks are worth responding to. And one of the things that chess taught me is how to remain calm, cool, and collected in the midst of tests. And I think life tests you, at times. It does present you with challenges, and sometimes they can feel like threats when you're uncomfortable, when you're in that uncomfortable space. But,
Mhm.
looking at it like a challenge is definitely helpful.
Okay. So while we're talking about some of the lessons that you've learned while playing chess, what do you think, I guess, is one of the biggest mistakes that you've made in a match where you're able to take a lesson away from that and be like, oh, okay, I see where I messed up now. And maybe like whether it's you being too hesitant to make a move or even being too hasty in making a move, and it kind of cost you.
Okay, yeah, excellent question. I am really a slow and steady wins the race kind of girl when it comes to chess. I play the long game. And so where
Mhm.
I've hurt myself is when I've started to play into my opponent's game rather than focusing on my game. So moving at their pace rather than going on my own terms. And so I think that's where I've hurt myself before, is kind of getting sucked up in the speed and the intensity of the moment, that I don't take that step back for reflection and for analysis to ponder what's going on. And so that's, I think, in my chess career as I've come up, that's something, a major lesson that I had to learn, was how to take that step back in the heat of the moment.
Mhm. And really just trusting your own preparation. Like you said, getting caught up in what somebody else's game is and really not being true to what your identity is and what your
Mm,
level of dedication to the game is, and really trusting within yourself to make the right decisions.
yes, that, like that feeling when you touch that piece and when you make that move and when your gut is behind it, and just trusting the flow of your intuition. Because I actually, a lot of people, well, I don't know if, people know this or don't know this, but I was, for many years, I was really not, I was mostly an intuitive player. I was not a book player. I did not like study books and things like that. So when I was doing, when I was winning, the tournaments and, championships and things like that, that was before I became more of the more serious and calculated player that I am today. So, I was moving from my my gut and from my spirit. And now I use, a combination of both that and the analytics that, coming together.
Also, it's not just really one dominant, I guess, approach that you have to the game. You really do kind of have to take, because I would imagine every opponent is different. So you can't always
Yeah.
make the same moves that you always want to make, which speaks to the
Mm-hmm.
adaptability.
Yeah, your game evolves. Like I've gone from e4, playing e4, which is the king pawn, to d4, which is playing the queen pawn, to which is, like a bishop's opening. You have to, as you progress in chess, you have to add things to your Rolodex. Things like different styles of openings, and different responses to players, because you need to be able to switch things up because everybody's coming with a different strategy. So
Yeah.
one size fits all is not an appropriate approach, when it comes to the world of chess.
So, do you remember what that feeling was like when you won your first tournament and you really felt that, oh wow, I'm really great at this and I love this game? What do you remember what that moment was for you?
Yeah, my first, winning my first tournament, it was that feeling. It's really hard to describe, I'll say, but it's like this overwhelming sense of joy, of elation, of just um pure happiness, elation. I was like, oh, this is not, and a sense of validation. It's like, not only do I love this and I have all this passion for this and I like to use my mind and different things like that, but this is showing a result. I have been able to take home, a trophy or a medal or a check or, a new rank, of some sort. So it's like earning those notches, especially that first one was a very pivotal moment where it was just like understanding, like, oh, believing in myself. Like I really just did that. I
Mhm.
just made that happen for myself. I thought my way out of, situations to create those checkmates and take that big win. And it felt amazing. It just, yeah, definitely amazing feeling.
Mhm. And did you find that there were other people who looked like you in those environments as well? Because I would imagine that, it's not the first thing that comes to my mind is like being a predominantly black activity. I mean, obviously, a lot of black people are playing chess and they're, world ranked and everything. But, obviously, we live in a world where we are the minority. So, what made you feel, I guess, at home in those spaces? Was it just you kept winning and you were like, oh yeah, for sure I belong here, like without a doubt?
Yeah, I would say what I love about chess is that it takes you strip away all the excess. It's not like other sports where you have an advantage if you're tall, or you have an advantage, if your arms are a certain length, or if your legs are a certain length, or different things that we can't control. It's really all mental, so
Mhm.
it's two minds having a conversation. And to me, that is it's beautiful.
Two minds having a conversation. That's a very beautiful way to put it. I never thought of it that way, but when you speak about, I guess, all of that goes into it, it really that is essentially what it is because you have to anticipate what the next person is going to do as well, and then also have your own strategy going on. And the board is
Yeah.
always going to change. You never really know what they're going to do. That's wow, two minds having a conversation. That's cool. I can see now why you're so good at it.
Just a different way of thinking about it.
Mhm. All right, so let's shift the focus to talking about the business because that's very interesting. So obviously, you knew that you were very skilled, very talented, and intelligent. And obviously, you playing and you running a business are two completely different things. So, what was, I guess, one of those tough lessons that you had to learn early on to really help you get ready to start this business? Like, how did you really lay that foundation?
Early on, early on, it really was to um, lean into the unknown, right? I had established myself at this, wonderful, largest chess academy in the nation. I was putting on my little wizard costume, being a chess wizard in schools and things like that. But what it took was a step of faith, really, to step away from that, knowing that I could pursue it on my own, that I could really do that, to have that belief in myself. So one of the
Mhm.
biggest lessons I learned in the beginning was to step out, and because I just made a post not too long ago, but I was talking about how young royalty was a figment of my imagination, and it almost came to me like in visions, right? And so when I was experiencing, what I was gonna do, it sounded crazy at the time because it was like, why are you leaving this great job? What's gonna happen? I was putting it all up in the air, but I was like, I know that I'm meant to serve, a higher purpose when it comes to this
Right.
game and do a certain level of work. And I know that I can do that independently. So the first step, to entrepreneurship, to stepping out and even having a business, is the belief that you can do it. Understanding, having that confidence within yourself and pulling, from the depths of your being, because it comes with rejection. Not everybody understands what you're
Mhm.
doing or why you're doing it, or what you want. They don't see the purpose. And so I had to deal with a lot of people not understanding the purpose in the beginning, until I show them that it's possible, and beyond possible, it's profitable. That's what people want to see when it comes to business.
I like that. I like that. That
Mhm.
so I guess what was that feeling like for you when I wouldn't want to call them like doubters, but obviously there are people who are going to be skeptical and really any risk that you want to take in your life, because it is in our human nature to want to play it safe and to want to protect ourselves all the time. So how did you remain, I guess, strong in your convictions that you really were on this right path when people close to you are not necessarily seeing the same vision as you?
uh, it took it took faith. It was some long nights, and it was a lot of writing. For me, writing is very healing. So I have these journals all the way back from like 2018, and before that, even earlier than that. But I keep all my journals so that I can go back to where I was mentally in a specific place
Mm.
and time. And so for, being in business, that feeling of having doubters, it's like, okay, they don't see it. And so it motivates me because it's like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I have in my head, because it's not clicking. So it's like the only way that I can really, dust, it off my shoulders is to do the work. So I use that doubt and a bit of that negativity to kind of propel me forward.
Yeah, I always make this statement that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have some level of cognitive dissonance in order to be successful. Like you have to be just a little bit crazy because you are blazing this new trail. You are doing something that people are not used to seeing, or most people don't even experience. And I don't know, for me, in my experience, I suffered from analysis paralysis very early on, where I
Mm.
just kept ruminating over the same thing over and over, and just doubting myself because I just like, I got to make sure I get it right. Like, I don't want to take the wrong step, so I'd rather not even go down that path. Would you say that because you've been just so entrenched in playing chess that you've kind of overstimulated that part of your mind that's always thinking about the future and not really embracing the present moment?
It's interesting that you say that, because I actually consider myself to be a person deeply dedicated to the present moment. I don't live in the future. I consider the future. I make considerations for it, and I make
Mhm.
plans for it, but I live in the present, and I really try to keep myself in the present moment. That, I think a lot of people think chess is 3, 5, 10 steps ahead, which is cool, and it can be that for some people. But I think a lot of people forget that it's making the best move in that moment for what's going on, in that second. And sometimes it's easy to get so caught up in the what's going to happen 3 or 4 moves, down the line, that you blunder in a major way because you're focused on a situation that hasn't even presented itself on the board yet. And I think that's how a lot of people manifest, that word, of course, but, manifest certain situations, is that they're so busy thinking about, step, C, D, E, F, that they forget, I still have to make that step A. I'm still in the present moment. So acting on that. So I would say I consider my, overstimulating that part of my, I actively work with myself to not get too caught up in the jumping steps ahead. I try and train myself to be both in the present moment fully and yet aware of the possibilities of the future. So taking those things into consideration. If that makes sense.
It really sounds like you have your anxiety like in check. And I admire that. It's something that I'm trying to work on myself.
Some days are better than others. Sometimes it's, you wake up and it's like, I'm living this reality. This is wonderful. And other days it's like, who am I? What's going on? So it's a case by case basis. But I think just maintaining a certain level of preserving self for me in moments where I'm, anxious, remembering who I am and how far I've come and what I've done. I like to go back to, in my mind, I like to go back to those low points, those points of real pain, of desperation, and recall that to myself. Like the things that I've overcome, I can't allow certain situations to make me anxious, after having, survived just to even be at this point. I have to live regardless of sometimes what my emotions are doing internally.
Yeah, and I like that you said that. It reminds me of this something Steve Harvey said once. He was like, "You have 100% track record of surviving all the most messed up days in your life," and it sounds like you've really embodied that and kind of given yourself a little chip on your shoulder to be like, "Oh, I mean, like, of course I can handle this because look at all of these other things that I've been able to accomplish, up until this point." So is that one of the things that you preach to your students as well? When they're, maybe somebody who is just now being introduced to the game of chess and they don't really have the same level of passion and love for it as you do. How do you really encourage them to really stick through it and really see it through?
Well, when I'm working with people, I like to speak to their higher selves when I'm working with them, and really challenge and push them. Yes, not everybody is as passionate as I am about the game, but people are passionate about themselves, and chess is a reflection of self. It's very mental and emotional. Right. So when the game is going on, even though they're maybe not as passionate, people do get invested in the game as it proceeds because they're making these decisions and then they're having these responses and the reactions to their decisions, and seeing how it all plays out on the board. So how I keep people going is, even that's a loss. Okay, did that loss teach you something? Did you learn something? Would you do things differently? Learning and growing from whatever, the wins and losses, not getting too caught up. And, you had one strategy that worked, that's excellent, but can you replicate that, and how many blunders did you have, how many mistakes did you make, keeping that into consideration too.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I asked the question, because there's so very few situations like the game of chess where you're literally 100% accountable for every mistake that you make. Like there's not really a lot of external factors. Like you said, it's a conversation between two minds. So I could imagine that it is very taxing mentally and emotionally to be enthralled in like a really intense match with someone else.
Oh yes, I've had matches go on for hours and you are wrapped up in that game. You are considering and pondering every square. You're invested, you're there, you're fully present. I like chess because it kind of washes away the world. When you really get into a game, like you are there and you are in that game. The little things that are usually on your mind, distractions, all that goes away. During a good, intense game of chess. So.
So, what advice would you have for someone in order to, I guess, fully embrace that state of mind, to not let anything else really, I guess, interfere with what the mission is at hand when it comes to being in that match?
You say you're asking what advice would I give?
Yeah, because I would imagine, like I said, you have to do so much mental exercise during that game. And, just being a human, there must be a lot of like chatter that goes on in your head during that time, a lot of self doubt when you're kind of going through like not only thinking about how you want to proceed, but knowing that the person across from you is trying to do the same thing as you, which is to try to get you in checkmate. So I guess my question is like, how do you keep that fortress just tight and impenetrable?
For me, it goes back to remaining calm, cool, and collected. Staying in that state and keeping that. And also, I'd like that remembering that you have an opponent, that is, I used to play soccer back in the day, so how I would look at it is like, you have this team, they're coming from the other side of the board, and they have the exact the other side of the field, and they have the exact opposite goal of you, and neither side is wrong. They're just coming from different sides,
Mhm.
So on the board, it's like remembering, okay, this person is actively fighting against me. We're not touching each other or anything, but we're at war here. So every move that they're making, whether I'm seeing their strategy or not, that move is against me in some way. Why are they doing what they're doing? Keep asking, that's how I stay calm, cool, and collected. Continue to ask myself, why are they doing what they're doing? And when I have an understanding of that, I can make my moves in a certain level of peace once I'm breaking that down. Because it's like, is what they're doing even applicable to what I want to do? So it's your intention versus another person.
Because they're human too, and they're susceptible to the same errors, the same faults that you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say that that's something that you found also presented itself when you kind of put on your entrepreneurial hat on? Do you feel that you're able to continuously move according to what your plan for your business is, while also considering what the needs of your clients and your community are, and not really making sure that those two things are in a line with each other?
It's when I put my entrepreneurial hat on, um, it, it's two ways. There's as an entrepreneur, there's everything to do, and there's also nothing to do at the same time. you know, it's it's like I'll give an example. So for my business model and things like that, it works for me to allow people to come to me. There was a period in time where I was going externally to drum up the business and get my name out of there. And eventually you shift in, as an entrepreneur, you shift into a different mode. So it's really, as an entrepreneur, it has to be a hard hat to protect you, because, things are falling and coming at you from all different directions, when you step into the world of entrepreneurship. And the biggest thing that's been, a help for me is to really sit back and understand that the moves that life, to think about it like a chessboard, and to really, okay, this is the resource that I have, listing out my resources in terms of the level of strength and importance to me. How am I going to utilize those things and push my message outward versus what am I taking inward from what I'm gaining in terms of experience, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So how has your business model evolved over time? Like, do you do one-on-one sessions, or is it more of a group setting? Do you offer like a course? Like, how does it look like if someone wants to learn the game from you?
You know, when I first started, I was teaching chess to anyone and everyone, anywhere, any place, anytime. You know, that was pretty much the mojo. I had a board on me at all times. I was ready to go, literally. And now I think I've kind of, you know, I've had to define. Well, I'll say I chose to define myself. Whether or not, am I going to be a chess player or am I going to be a chess teacher? And I realized that I loved the teaching element. I play chess, yes, I do, but I love my passion is the teaching element of it. And so that means for me classes, that means going to schools, that means going where the people are. So
Mm.
for me, it's like I'm not really in the space of doing one-on-ones anymore or things like that. I want to reach the largest amount of people as possible when I'm giving my lectures and things like that. So I orient towards class. I think at one point in time I was looking at my customers, as the individual on the street, and really now it's not that anymore. I'm not necessarily in business with individuals. I'm more so targeting schools, and I'm targeting organizations, uh, and businesses, other owners, and collaborators and groups and things like that. So that's kind of how my business model has evolved over time. Less on the singular portion and more on the class setting.
And that really makes sense because when you're working with these institutions, it makes it easier for you to scale the business. You're able to have more of an impact because obviously, you've mentioned that your goal is to really expand the amount of chess players that there are in the Western New York Black community. And you're able to do that when you're focusing more on, just like I said, just scaling up as opposed to just doing individually because there's only so many people that you can randomly play on the street, I would imagine.
Exactly. So I've moved less from the individual one-on-one challenges to really just the group setting, how to reach more people and how to go to where the people are. So if the people want to connect with me, even though I don't really do individual things as much, I do sponsored, a lot of sponsored activities. So I have organizations that will sponsor chess classes from me, and then those chess classes are open to the public. So I'm working with the organization,
Oh.
in the business element, but I'm still involving the public. And when I do host events and different things like that, I try for the most part to make them free, and inclusive, as inclusive as possible to the public, because I want people to come. I want people to have a good time and relax and enjoy themselves and play some chess.
Yeah. And what would you say was the biggest surprise for you when you began to do that?
Well, I'll say two things. I would say first, it's the impact that I'm having, like the waves that I'm making and touching people's lives. That to be able to work with groups and you know see the minds working together, and then that expanding to other people kind of wanting to join in and things like that. So I
Mhm.
think that's really, for me, very enjoyable to watch the impact that I'm having. And then a huge surprise to me too was that how much I was worth. Over time my price has changed. Yesterday's price is not today's price.
No,
you
it
know
ain't.
I got better, and as I refined myself, realizing that I was worth more than I had been charging, and stepping up and asking for what I was worth, and having that be well received was a very nice surprise for me.
Yeah, I would imagine for a lot of business owners, it is kind of a surprise. And I spoke to one of my last guests about this, where it's just, oh, you just put a number out there because that's what you feel. And it's not really up to you to convince other people of what your worth is, because obviously it can change, depending on the environment that you're in. But what you're saying is that you didn't have any type of resistance. You really stepped out with that confidence and you planted your flag, and people were able to be receptive to that because you already shown your worth.
Mm-hmm. And it's a big portion of that is like not forgetting. I think for me and for a few other entrepreneurs that I know, it's easy to forget kind of how much you've done, and it's like I have to remind myself, actually, I have credentials and I'm accomplished in this, and this is not just some random person getting up here doing this. No, this is really my, this is, I'm
I'm
coming,
about that life.
I'm all about that life. Like, so just reminding myself, oh, that's who I am. Yeah, I'm that person who I do this. Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
That's dope. It's really great that you have this confidence about yourself, because I think that, like we were talking about, just this conversation between two minds, you can't really be a shy and timid person to be a great chess player. Do you think that that's true?
It's hard for me to answer that question because I'm just not a shy and timid person. But I know some shy and timid people that excel in chess because it's a quiet game, you know? So
Mm.
there is room for, there's room for those. Chess has room for minds of all shapes and sizes, for extroverts and introverts, because it offers
Mm.
so many different ways to play the game. So you definitely can be shy and timid, playing the game, but that's, when that's a part of your characteristic that comes out in your gameplay, actually. Is something that I've noticed. So, when you bring that shy and timid characteristic into your gameplay, it can often result in losses. You can definitely excel, particularly, but it depends on the person, really.
Well, that's very interesting because, obviously I have my own, I guess, preconceived notions because I'm not really out here like you are playing, 100 matches a day, probably. Most of my knowledge of chess came from watching Queen's Gambit. But so what you're saying is that, is it really, and I guess what I'm trying to understand is it your personality that dictates your style of play? Like, is it possible for you to, I guess, take on a different strategy, even if it doesn't necessarily suit who you are? Because, like you said, you can read someone and really get an idea of the state of mind that they're in based on how they play. So, if I am that shy, timid person, can I even play an aggressive style of chess? Like, or is my mind just gonna like reject that idea altogether?
Ooh, so I would say it comes with time. With time, you're able to play different styles of chess regardless of your personality. But when you're first starting and really getting accustomed to the game, it's all you that comes out. It's your mind that comes out until you train your mind to move in different ways.
Because it seems just like one of those games where it is so personal, I guess, in a way, because it is like tennis, for example. It's just one on one. Like there's
I
really
also play tennis. I'm an avid tennis player, so I love that you
for
brought
real?
that up. Yes. Play tennis. I play pickleball. I'm a big I was a tri-varsity athlete. Like I love sports, like competition
Oh
of all
wow.
kinds.
So what was it? Because I would imagine that obviously you have so many different passions. So what was it about the game of chess specifically that I guess made you want to stick with it? Was it like a mentor that you had? Because you did mention earlier that for you, teaching is so gratifying. Would you say that the mentors that you had playing chess is what really helped solidify that this was going to be your mission to share this game?
I did have some excellent mentors, I will say. Antonio Cirillo, basically I went to a school called Buffalo Seminary and I founded the chess team there. And one of the girls who was a year under me came in, her father happened to be a tournament director. And so once I got in contact with him, that's how I started going to tournaments and competing and learning about the competitive world of chess. So I'll say I had excellent mentors because they introduced me to especially Mr. Sorrell, shout out to him. But I had some good people that introduced me into the world of chess. And that let me know that it was its own place, that it had its own rules, its own style, and its own way to be. And I was finding my footing in that world, and so I knew that even though I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, that there was a place for me.
Wait, you said that you founded the chess team at the school?
Yes, I did.
What?
I did. I was president of chess club. So I actually went to an all girls school. And it was very like student led and run, so students could form their own clubs and start organizations and things like that. So I was very into vice president of the class and stuff like that. So student government and just trying things. So I was like, I'm gonna start this chess club, and people were like, okay, cool, we'll get in chess club. And I brought a certain level of energy and a different kind of swagger to the game that really got a lot of people interested. A lot of people remember me from my time, in school as the crazy, the chess girl who was always talking about chess, or trying to get people to come to chess club. My senior presentation was all about that too.
Wow. Oh, so you're not new to this. You're really true to this. Like you've been.
Oh, yes. This is, yes, this has been years in the making. I actually originally, before I fell in love with entrepreneurship, I was pursuing a career in law. So I did a lot of like legal internships and different things like that, which was another introduction into the professional world as a part of my background, which has helped me a lot too. But outside of that, I was kind of setting myself on this course of like, I'm gonna, get into this firm and I'm gonna be partner. And then, after moving to DC and spending some time there, and pursue, I was on the mock trial team, which I loved, and I had a great time. But I had to ask myself the questions of like, who is it how do I want to work and who do I want to work for? And once I answered that question, I want to work for myself. It just took me in a completely different direction.
What do you feel like is next for Young Royalty Chess Academy? Where do you plan on taking this in the next year?
What's next for Young Royalty Chess Academy? The biggest thing for Young Royalty Chess Academy is that we are hiring instructors, So that's the big, next step is growing. And teaching people to do what I do, how I do it in a very particular way. That kind of stimulates, growth and learning for the students. So bringing people on board to further serve the mission. And, I've built, quite a great foundation. Now it's time to build out my team,
And what are you looking for in these instructors? Like, do they need to have like a certain amount of matches played? Do they need to be ranked nationally, or what type of people are you looking to build this community with?
You'd be surprised. I would say you can teach chess, but you can't teach love. And that's the primary element that I'm looking for when it comes to chess instructors, is a love of working with children. And if you have that, I can show you the rest,
Okay. So is that your primary audience right now? The community that you're serving is really teaching younger people how to play chess, or do you also, expand to different age ranges, of like maybe teaching senior citizens or young adults? Or
because I do so much work in the schools, a lot of my, what I'm paid to do is to work with children. But I do a lot, I was working with just recently, a few months ago, the city mission. So we did a chess program there. For those of you who don't know, the Buffalo City Mission is like where, homeless people, come together and they're provided different resources there. So we were able to provide them with a chess class, which was wonderful, which was all adults. So I do, whenever there's an opportunity, and I've done, group, a lot of different like private group sessions for adults and things like that, like chess and wine nights, or different, pup and plays and stuff like that. So I do things for adults too, for sure. I just, a lot of it is kids, but there's room for everyone within Young Royalty.
That's cool. I never really thought about. I might have to like do a chess date night or something.
They can't chess and chill. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the
I
move.
like that. I like that. All right. So we're coming up on the end of our time, Danielle. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you? How can they find you? You know, if they're not in the school or they're not at the city mission, how can they get in touch with you and really learn more about you, more about the game of chess?
So everyone can get in touch with me at Young Royalty Chess on Instagram. So it's just, everything is spelled the regular way. Young Royalty Chess. So at Young Royalty Chess on Instagram, at Young Royalty Chess on YouTube, youngroyaltychess@gmail.com if you want to email me and reach out that way. For sure. And then youngroyaltychess.com. So it's the website. So feel free to interact with me on any of those meetings, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's email or through the website, however. But I'm open.
All right, sounds good. And we're going to have links to all of those in the description below. Make sure you check that out. Thank you once again for my great guest today, Danielle of Young Royalty Chess Academy. I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and really educate the people on, what you do and how beneficial the game of chess is for your life.
No, thank you for having me. This has been such a pleasure. Like, I cannot get enough of name plan, right? So I have to come up with my own name plan and game plan for my business. But talking with you definitely helps me think things through. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we definitely got to find some time to play a match together so you could teach me some new tricks.
I keep a board on me. I will pull up on you, okay? Okay, I got one in the trunk right now.
I hope that you took a lot of meaningful insights from this conversation. I know for sure I did. I know I had a lot of fun recording it and talking to our guest today. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight some of my key insights from today's conversation. Hope you enjoy. And if you have any that you think that I may have missed, go ahead and drop them in the comments below.
Before, because you mentioned you don't know how old chess is. Chess is actually about 1,500 years old, the game. So I was drawn to chess because it's a game where you can really think and ponder. And I love to think. I love critical thinking. And the game of chess, it actually brings out strategic planning, analytical and inductive reasoning, as well as, creativity. It stimulates brain growth and so many different things that it does behind the scenes, that it's kind of like you're playing a game up front, but all these different things are going on cognitively that just benefit you so much. So it was a game where I could allow my mind to expand, serving, people that look like me, people in my community. I thought that we could do more in that area, especially for young women as well. So that's why I kind of founded Young Royalty, because I saw that there was a need. And I knew that I had the skills, and the ability to fill that need. And so it was really just connecting with the right individuals moving forward and network. How Young Royalty was a figment of my imagination. And it almost came to me like in visions, right? And so when I was experiencing, what I was going to do, it sounded crazy at the time, because it was like, why are you leaving this great job? What's going to happen? I was putting it all up in the air, but I was like, I know that I'm meant to serve, a higher purpose when it comes to this game and do a certain level of work. And I know that I can do that independently. So adaptability, moving with what's going on, because every time a piece moves on the board, the dynamics are changing. And every time something happens in your life, the dynamics are also changing. So you have to be, flexible and maneuver, and make the best choices that you can for yourself with all the given information you have at the time. Because you need to be able to switch things out, because everybody's coming with a different strategy. So one size fits all is not an appropriate approach, when it comes to the world of chess. I play the long game. And so where I've hurt myself is when I've started to play into my opponent's game rather than focusing on my game. So moving at their pace rather than going on my own terms. And so I think that's where I've hurt myself before, is kind of getting sucked up in the speed and the intensity of the moment, that I don't take that step back for reflection and for analysis to ponder what's going on. Several steps ahead, right? What's the objective? What are the incremental things that you can do to gradually work yourself closer to there? Because you don't get to checkmate and just, you can't checkmate in just one move. There has to be things that are coming together, elements that you're bringing and creating to get that right, that ideal checkmate situation. People think chess is 3, 5, 10 steps ahead, which is cool, and it can be that for some people. But I think a lot of people forget that it's making the best move in that moment for what's going on, in that second. And sometimes it's easy to get so caught up in the what's going to happen 3 or 4 moves, down the line, that you blunder in a major way because you're focused on a situation that hasn't even presented itself on the board yet. And I think that's how a lot of people manifest, that word, of course, but, manifest certain situations, is that they're so busy thinking about, step, C, D, E, F, that they forget, I still have to make that step A. I'm still in the present moment. So acting on that. So I would say I consider my, overstimulating that part of my, I actively work with myself to not get too caught up in the jumping steps ahead. Because I think looking at things as a threat is, can be, to each his own, but it can be a fear-based mindset, at times, because there's a time to protect yourself, of course, and there's, times when we are threatened, but not, it's about understanding to what degree, because in chess, right, sometimes a person will throw out a move where they're attacking you. And it's really a test, right? Not all attacks are worth responding to. And one of the things that chess taught me is how to remain calm, cool, and collected in the midst of tests. And I think life tests you, at times. It does present you with challenges, and sometimes they can feel like threats when you're uncomfortable, when you're in that uncomfortable space. But, looking at it like a challenge is definitely helpful. Okay, did that loss teach you something? Did you learn something? Would you do things differently? Learning and growing from whatever, the wins and losses, not getting too caught up. And, you had one strategy that worked, that's excellent, but can you replicate that, and how many blunders did you have, how many mistakes did you make, keeping that into consideration too. A big portion of that is like not forgetting. I think for me and for a few other entrepreneurs that I know, it's easy to forget kind of how much you've done, and it's like, I have to remind myself, actually, I have credentials and I'm accomplished in this, and this is not just some random person getting up here doing this. No, I this is really my,
I'm about that life.
I'm all about that life. Like, so just reminding myself, oh, that's who I am. Yeah, I'm that person who I do this. Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.